Is randomness bad? Is it bad to have randomness in your game? Do you like randomness? If randomness is there, how much is it okay? If randomness is there, does it make it a bad game? How much randomness does it take to make a game good or bad? Is there a line in which you can see and say, well, if it crosses this line and this amount of randomness, it makes it a bad game? Or if it's on just this side of things, it's still okay. Is it a bad game? Or is it a game that you just don't like personally? Those are the thoughts that come to my mind when I think about Senjutsu. And what we're going to be talking about with this is Senjutsu, randomness, as well as cultivating the culture and community around you when you talk about games. Because that's sort of the topic that this conversation around Senjutsu right now has sort of brought up for me. Similarly to randomness, negativity. If I am more negative about a game, does that make me more honest? If I am, consequently, more positive, does that make me more dishonest? Is there a line in which you can point at to say, if this person crosses this line in terms of so much positivity, they're clearly not being truthful? Or on the opposite side of things, if I cross a line on the other side of things being negative, then they must be telling the truth. Where is that line? And how does your own bias affect that? If you cultivate a personality for one side or the other, you are likely going to attract people that are magnetized in a similar polarity towards this side or this side. So not only are you projecting it outwards, but it is being reverberated back at you as reinforcement, right? Senjutsu, in a rough translation, can mean tactics and strategy. It can also mean sort of magic or sage arts, if you will. And so the use of that as the title of this game makes sense thematically. But the issues surrounding this game right now, of randomness, of approach, of community, because this game has somehow become, for me, the center point of the schism in this hobby when it comes to those different thoughts. Now, the other side of this is that when we talk about games like this, when we talk about games that we have expectations for, what are you expecting of the game? What is your community expecting of the game? What is the community expecting of you? This game has a very interesting aura surrounding it in that regard. I have seen comments, community discussion, feedback that is on one end of things, very positive, and on the other end of things, the exact opposite. And therein lies the question. What is the objective of such discussion? Is it to promote a viewpoint? Is it to promote a community of similar thoughts and expressions? Or is it to help people actually decide what is right for them? If you've heard me talk on a lot of my big game videos, the biggest concern is not necessarily whether this is a great game or a super fantastic game or whether or not you have to get this game, right? It's is this game right for you? But nowadays it seems more along the lines of, I need to be, very strongly on this end of things hyping, or I need to be very strongly on this end of things hyping. And there is a certain expectation that goes along with each of those. And the other dichotomy that goes along with this is money, right? For one, if Senjutsu was only raising $100,000 right now instead of $1 million, would there be as much scrutiny? Would there be as much discussion on that aspect of things? Probably not, rightly or wrongly so. The other side of things is when we talk about these discussions of games, and you're probably going, Chris, why aren't you actually talking about Senjutsu? Get to Senjutsu. I don't care about your rambling. But this is important because this ties into the current thoughts behind Senjutsu right now. Is when we talk about randomness, when I made the whole issue of, where is that objectively or subjectively able to be differentiated? The same goes along the lines of positivity and negativity when we talk about games, or criticism if you want to be more broad, if you will. Because nowadays, especially around these communities that I have mentioned, how is criticism received? How is criticism presented? Not necessarily that they is criticism, but how it is brought about, how it is offered, how it is given out to people. Not necessarily publishers or designers, but to the community. And for some reason, our community has decided, or a vocal part of our community has decided, that if you are positive on things, you must be influenced. You must be biased. If you are overly critical, negative, there is somehow this translation of honesty to go along with it. Because, clearly, money is not an influence then, if you're willing to be negative. And again, that's an interesting point. Similarly, if someone says to you, well, Chris, honestly, this is kind of what I was thinking. We say that all the time. It's a colloquialism or an expression that we use without even thinking nowadays. But if you really think about it for a second here, and I'll get back to Senjutsu and you'll see where I'm going in a minute. If someone says to you that, and you really think about what they just said to you, you go, okay, wait. You just said, honestly, I want to tell you something. Well, were you not going to be honest with me previously? Right? Like you had to put in that extra over-the-top adjective to tell me emphatically that you were going to be honest? Like, really? Just be honest with me. You don't need to tell me, you're being honest. Which, again, goes to when people label things honest in media, right? What's the point of that? What's the point of saying, this is an honest preview? This is an honest review. This is my honest opinion. It's one of three things at this point. If someone says that, it's stating the obvious and trying to make yourself sound. The second is it's a little bit clickbaity. The third is that it's a little bit passive aggressive, implying potentially, again, whether intentionally or not, but definitely regardless that it's there, that others who are not labeling it such are not being as honest. And again, that's a whole nother issue. But that therein lies with this game, and therein lies previews of this game and explanations of this game and discussion about this game. Because that is the schism that we're seeing when we talk about critiques and discussion of games that are not yet currently out, that in certain situations some people have access to and some don't. And what is the purpose behind them? Is it to inform? Or is it to confirm bias that is already developed around the community in which it is taking place? Because of the two things that I've seen out there, the comments, the feedback is reflective of the tone of the videos in the first place. And you are fostering a culture of that and trying to reinforce it by how you choose to present things. And Senjutsu is a core example of that dichotomy and that split in terms of the media side of things in our hobby currently. Senjutsu is on Kickstarter right now. I am not one of those people that can speak from firsthand experience. I only have access to the information that any of you watching this video would have access to at this point. In terms of video, in terms of discussion, in terms of content, what you see is what you get. And so all of my thoughts and my speculations purely based off of that. And as always, I am a nobody. This is just my small mind rambling on these things. You're probably going, Chris, talk about Senjutsu. Okay, let's talk about Senjutsu for a minute here. Senjutsu is effectively a one-on-one battler, dueler, card deck building, deck construction-esque samurai-influenced game with a large, fair amount of randomness thrown in. Again, that goes back to the beginning about how do you feel about that? Does that make it a good game? Does that make it a bad game? It's using miniatures. No, I don't like miniatures. Must be a bad game. Right? That's what's being said. It's on Kickstarter. Must be a bad game. Yep. Those crowdfunders, you just can't trust them. Those videos out there on crowdfunding campaigns, you just can't trust them. But that's the sort of reinforcement bias and the confirmation bias that we see all the time on both sides of things. I'm guilty of it just as much as anyone else. When something is popular, it also becomes countercultural, popular, to diss it. I'm guilty of that myself. I read Game of Thrones way before it was a huge hit. Way before. Tried to get my wife in on reading it, wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Show came out, boom, turn around. I started disliking it because it was becoming more popular, because everyone was talking about it, because everyone else knew about my hidden little secret on that side of things. So, I mean, I know firsthand what it's like to do that. And that's what's happening with Senjutsu, because it is now a target of further criticism and critiquing because it's raised so much money. And full disclaimer, I have no clue if this is going to be a good game. Full disclaimer, I'm backing this right now. Am I going to keep the pledge? I have no idea. It looks entertaining to me. It looks along the lines of something that I would like. But realistically, I have no idea more than anyone else. Because from what we've heard through the grapevine, through other videos, that, you know, what has been sent out and what's on Tabletop Simulator and what's available is not exactly the finished product. And there's a lot of stuff that they're incorporating in all of this stuff that you're seeing that hasn't really been incorporated yet in the full game. And there's just a ton of stuff here that maybe isn't fully portable there, and maybe you're only getting half experience. Who knows? Either way, there's enough to give some thoughts on it from that side of things. But that goes back to the beginning of the video again, right? When we're talking about all of this stuff. Where did you draw the line between this is a bad game and this just isn't a game for me? Or this is a really good game and this isn't a game for me? As someone playing games, as someone talking about games, where's that line? I've been doing this for, over a year now, and that's a terrifyingly difficult aspect of things that no one ever tells you about. Because when I'm looking at this and when I'm playing games myself, I was playing Fantasy Realms last night, was playing Battle Line Medieval last night, was playing Love Letter Infinity Gauntlet last night. Are those good games? Are those bad games? Because I enjoyed myself, did that make it automatically a good game? Or am I able to separate out the mechanisms, my enjoyment of said mechanisms, versus how those mechanisms are used to make the game connect? And that is where I'm going with this, is how do those mechanisms connect in this game? Whether or not you like them. To appreciate what it is bringing, separated out from your personal opinion. Because that's realistically what the purpose of a video like this is for, correct? For me to be able to tell you, okay, guys, I really like this. But you know what? There's 70 other people out there telling you that they like it or they don't like it. That's not really the important thing of this video, right? The important thing of this video is for me to separate out my personal taste to provide you with information to know whether or not it's right for you. Because it doesn't do you any good if I tell you I like this, right? And if I tell you overwhelmingly I don't like it, does that mean that it's a bad game? There are plenty of games that I don't like that are great games. Plenty. I'm a horrible gamer when it comes to that sort of stuff. I have said from the beginning that this game, in its core, in its concept of having a hand of cards, playing a hand of cards having to react, having speed, having initiative to do these actions in a 3D manner reminds me in just that this is a 3D Yomi or BattleCon or Exceed. And if you've ever played any one of those games, right, the whole gist is on this hex, or on that strip, on this battle mat, if you will, that I'm holding. It's a 2D-ish, as far as you can get two-dimensional, but it's a straight line. So you are going forward at each other in that sense with BattleCon and Exceed. And there's a chance that you can back up, the other person can back up, and both your attacks can whiff. You can pass the other person in other games like Twisted Fables, for example, or even some of these, and miss. You can have your card be faster than the other person's and stun them and block their attack altogether. And that's what we've seen in this game, right? Where you could just whiff on a turn. And this is just adding not only a straight line element here, but it's adding it in this direction, and this direction, and this direction. And so now you're having it in multiple ways. The thing that you need to be aware of is how frustrating is that going to be for you? If that is frustrating to you to have that happen, does that mean they are executing it poorly? Or is that a reflection of your own bias? Can you separate those two out? It's tough. It's tough. It's very tough. And now put you in front of a camera and have you explain it to someone else? Well, that's even tougher. And so that's wherein this lies, is how much of this is done to that effect where the mechanisms are there and it's per taste as opposed to anything else. And again, with this game, if you don't like those other games, now you're adding another element of things. You're adding, if you've seen Street Fighter the miniatures, having that element of paper, scissors, rock, because that's essentially what you're doing here in a different way. If you're not going to like that, you're not going to like this. You're just not, and that's okay. Recently, I have said this in several other videos, we are trying to fit a round peg into a square hole with these games, right? Well, maybe this Euro game is the Euro game that will change my mind on Euro games. Maybe this dice chucker will be the one that changes my mind on dice chuckers, and I will love them going forward. Maybe this two-player battler with randomness and asymmetry will fill that void in my heart/game collection that is shaped just in the Senjutsu shape that only it can fill. And if you go in thinking that, and then you see something or hear someone talk about it in one way or the other, it will very likely swing you one way or the other. So that's the question. And honestly, the answer still is, I don't know. Now, again, with any of these campaigns, I'll get back to the usual stuff here because I've been narrating and, soapboxing for too long, if you will. Soliloquying, if you English majors are out there. Solo, co-op versus. I wish you would have done one or maybe two of those. I shudder in my mind every time I see a game like this try to be everything. Scrap the solo mode. Scrap the campaign mode. Make this just a pure battler. Boom. We've seen difficulties arise with other games. We've seen splits in terms of what's good. I'm looking at you, Bloodstone, because people said, well, I kind of just want the PvE. I kind of just want the PvP. And now, again, this doesn't suffer from the price point issue that did as well, where people didn't feel like they were getting their money's worth. But that's the biggest concern when I see that. I don't care about the funding. I don't care about the number of other people that are aligning with myself in tastes. What I care about is, what is this going to look like, and how much effort is going into this versus how much effort is going to this and how much effort is going into this, and can you multitask and split your attention and make them all balanced in all modes? Because, that's why some of these other games that I talked about, Exceed, BattleCon, Yomi, are so well thought of, right? They focus on the thing that they are trying to accomplish. And they focus on it with such a narrow focus that it works. It works without question. And that's my fear when I see this. I just don't know if that's a good thing or not. Deluxe is great. You know me, I don't care about this deluxe obstacles, deluxe little terrain thing. No. I almost wish there was less of that so that you wouldn't slow down production, so that maybe you could have a $3 or $5 lower price point and not have that be the reason production is behind by 3 months or even 6 months than if you had just gone with cards and standees and, you know, even just a couple miniatures for each of the characters. Like, what is that going to do from that side of things? I worry about that. I worry about bloat in a game like this. I worry that there is going to be, you know, with all of this stuff, and I love the fact that they're having the standee option. Don't get me wrong. But is there such a thing as too much of a good thing? Absolutely. I mean, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra miniatures. Sleeve packs, don't care about that. But 5 other expansions. Almost all, with 2. Except for the last one, which is 1, which is 9 more characters. I'm looking at BattleCon right behind me right now. BattleCon got delayed. BattleCon got remade more than once because of the sheer spans that BattleCon is. And because ultimately, when they released a few characters, including ones like these in these single packs, they weren't as well balanced. And there was some errata. And again, I don't care about having 37 different characters. You know what's great about Exceed is you buy 1 box of Exceed and you have 4 very asymmetric, very unique, very well-tested, oiled, balanced characters. And the consistency from one box to the next is what makes it from pretty good, absolutely forking fantastic. And so that is what I worry about here. I look at this and I go, oh, those look really cool. And I go, is that going to work? Are you spreading yourselves too thin? I don't know. I don't have access to the full buffet of information and game. Only Stone Sword Games can look at us and say, hey guys, don't worry, I got this covered. Or hey, hey guys, man, they just hit another stretch goal. We're going to have to give them something else to motivate them because we're running out of stuff here. Come up with something else on the fly. Like, I don't know. Because you can probably think of campaigns in your mind, if you're like me, and you're a super backer or you're anything close to having backed many, many, many Kickstarter games, and know of campaigns that fall on either end of things. That is what I worry about. All of a sudden now, this 49-pound pledge. 18, 10, 18, 18, 18. We're well over 100 pounds. I mean, you buy 4 boxes of Exceed for less than that, right? So, are you better off because this is 3D, because this has miniatures? It makes it better? No, it doesn't. What makes it better is if you can make this the well-oiled machine, but adding the 3D element that Exceed lacks. Because those others are the standard bearers. So if it's not as good as those, I don't really want to play it, right? Because I have those other ones. And I know how good those are, which is what terrifies me when I see all of this stuff. I almost wish we had the townsfolk tussle approach, which is why, even though I didn't back that campaign, that was one of the ones that I admired the most, because you know what they said? Hey guys, we know our limit. Hey guys, this is the scope in which we are practicing. Here's a little bit of extra, but beyond that, guys, we want to get you the best overall, well-rounded, well-oiled machine product that we can. We don't want to have bloat. We don't want to increase the cost. We don't want to delay you getting your product, or something that might end in you not getting what we want to put out there in terms of excellence. Means the blessing and curse of Madara, right? So perfectionist in that sense that it was so delayed and so over budget that, it ended up working out in the end. But let's be honest, Madara and the success that Madara had, especially the second time around compared to the first, are the exception rather than the rule when it comes to Kickstarters, and especially with miniatures. And so that's my fear. So I don't know if I can give you a good answer on whether or not you should back it at this point. But those are the things you have to weigh. And those are the things I'm weighing right now as I sit around here and day to day think about this compared to, this. I mean, when I look at this map, I go, wow, right? No qualms about it. No, it's going to get supported. No, it's going to have, real fantastic side of things. And the other thing I look at is, do you have a core audience for something like this? Do you have a play group for something like this? That's the biggest challenge. Do you have someone who wants to play one-on-one all the time with these asymmetric characters? Do you have someone that you can practice with that's going to go one-on-one, mano-a-mano, meta versus meta, and learning characters versus learning characters? I mean, because that's the whole thing with BattleCon, right? BattleCon, the joy in it is not playing through all of the characters so that you can say you've played through them all, right? It's saying, I've got sort of like Super Smash Brothers, if you will. I've got my main, I've maybe got a secondary, and I have them down. So that even if there is some randomness there, I know how to mitigate it, I know how to handle it, I know how to deal with it. And do you have that sort of situation? Or are you backing it because you're, trying to follow the tidal wave of other people and you don't want to miss out, and you're not sure if you're going to back it, but you can always resell it because you might break even or make more money? Because that's also something I'm past at this point. But that's the situation we find ourselves in all the time about this, right? And going back to the beginning, again, randomness, execution, positivity, negativity, or criticism, which is more helpful without being derogatory, and positivity without feeling like it's a half-truth at the same time. And it's tough. I don't know what else to tell you. So right now, I'm keeping my pledge. Am I going to keep it, when the push comes to shove, the last 24 hours? I don't know. I don't know. Because again, like I said, I have all these other games. I don't get them played enough. Am I just trying to fill that hole in my heart in that sense? Of my collection needs another one of these? Or am I just saying, you know what? I'm FOMOing. I don't know. But, I mean, this is unfiltered. This is something I see go on elsewhere. I am seeing the battles in the forums. I am seeing it on Reddit. I am seeing it on Twitter. I am seeing it on Facebook. On this schism of you're too positive, you're too negative, you're only honest this way, you're only honest this way. And you know what? You got to make that determination for yourself by being careful what you say to other people, especially in my shoes, but also how you say it and how you cultivate the people that are around you when you're saying it. That's a reason when I do these Kickstarter roundup videos each week, there's definitely a quality difference between some of those games. But whether or not the quality is this or this, you can't tell the work level difference or the passion level difference based on that. And to say so and to interpret otherwise is, one, it's not fair, and two, you don't know. And so, you got to be careful. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. There you go. My thoughts on Senjutsu, randomness, positivity, negativity, the hobby, and whether or not you should back Senjutsu in the first place. So, that was rambly, that was long, that was soapboxy. I apologize. If you made it to this part, thank you. If you didn't, well, I appreciate it too. In fact, you gave me a shot in the first place. If you like this, hopefully there's, a little more, maybe, less soapboxy in the future. Don't worry. This is like a one-time thing, hopefully. But there we go. A little laugh at the end, if nothing else. Making a fool of myself on the internet. I am very good at that. If my wife had any idea. Okay. Thanks, guys. Stay classy. Seriously. I'll see you around.